Welcome to a KPLE special broadcast. We are going to be talking about poverty's impact in Central Texas today. And this broadcast, we're going to be addressing poverty, homelessness, hunger, health care, mental health issues in our region. And they are all a part of the circle of poverty. And we're going to be doing this in 3 segments. And my first guest today in the first segment are, to my far left, Mr. Jim Hornsby, Director of Feed My Sheep in Temple, Texas. And this is Ms. Sue Hamby. She is a homeless advocate. She's Board of Directors for Citizens of Progress, and she has in the past worked with Bell County Homeless Coalition and the point of time count of the homeless, which is done every year. So welcome both of you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Both of you truly are experts in this area. Jim, you work hands-on with people, plus you co-labor with many agencies. You have compiled a tremendous amount of statistics, and I'm going to be coming back to you in just a moment for this, but I want to start with Sue. And Sue, I've known you as an advocate for the homeless for many years, and when you were actually doing the count, which takes place in January, talk about how many homeless people we actually have in the Central Texas area.
Well, the homeless, as I said, measuring them or counting them is kind of challenging because you always can't get, you know, they're in dilapidated buildings, and a lot of people couch surf. They go from home to home. But every year...
Couch surf? Is that
couch surf, yes.
Okay.
And that's where, especially with families, sometimes if they have children in school, they'll stay with some friends and then they'll move to some more friends. So they're homeless, but yet they're not all on the streets.
True.
And, but what they do is, this is done, it's coordinated by the Texas Homeless Network, which coordinates it for our state. And each city in Texas has a homeless count. And what we do is it's designated on a certain day in January, and this is done throughout the United States on the same day. And we count there's a standardized survey that we use, and we count, we do the surveys, we go to Jim's place, we go to the library, we go out into the fields, we go to dilapidated buildings. Matter of fact, they're even counting the homeless now in the jails and the schools.
That's good.
Yes,
that's good, actually.
And so we count them, and as best we can, and then we compile the data. We send it to Austin, to Texas Homeless Network. They compile it for our state, and then it goes into Washington, D.C. to HUD. And then that determines how much money comes back to our area.
To the county,
To
maybe?
the county. Well, to the state.
To the state,
and then the
okay.
state divides it up. And in January, when we did it in 2018, there were 325 homeless, which is a little bit less than...
That is just the city of Temple?
No, that's Temple and Killeen and there.
Okay.
That's the ones that we were able to count.
Because I was going to say, I think the number is greater
Oh,
than
there's
that.
much greater. I mean, we were just talking, and Jim was telling me that, you know, we had an area behind Lowe's, which I was aware of, that we used to count. At one time, maybe 100 people were behind there. But that was lower. The number was lower. In 2017, I looked up, and we had 506. But you got to realize, we're only counting them on that one day and in that particular time. So there's a lot of them.
Well, tell me a little bit about why people are homeless, Sue. Because you run into that when you're out, and I've heard you give reports at meetings. So.
Yes. Well, there's different types of homeless. You have the chronically homeless, you have the temporary homeless. The chronically homeless are those that usually have mental health issues, whereas the temporary homeless, they may be evicted and, you know, lost their job or medical expenses. And so there's many different reasons. Homeless people, most people think of homeless as someone who's kind of, you know, out on the streets begging, and that's not necessarily true. Because there's been an increase in number of families and also number of women. And so
there was a statistic that I read last night that said 3% of the population is homeless for under a year's period of time, and then there was a greater statistic over a 30-year period of time, and these are the ones that you're talking about that are kind of in and out of poverty for a variety of reasons, even losing jobs.
Losing jobs, you know, having, sometimes a woman and her children can be in an abusive relationship and they leave. And homelessness has changed in the last few years. There's more women now, approximately 25% of the homeless are women, and there's more families now, and approximately 10% are veterans. And so our community's going to be addressing that. We're working on that.
Jim, from your perspective, because you work hands-on every day, as a matter of fact, today is not the easiest day for you to be away because of, you know, it's close to Thanksgiving and there's a lot going on at the facility at Feed My Sheep. Share with me a little bit about Feed My Sheep and your experience with all of this.
Well, Feed My Sheep, we daily, 7 days a week, we feed people. And so we have an opening to see a lot of the homeless, and for the number of reasons as Sue brought out. The vast majority, 65% of the folks we deal with, mental health is the problem.
Okay.
The problem with that is a lot of them are there because their families didn't know what to do with them. So they either forced them out, or some of them try to get them a place to live, and being that they don't understand how to take care of their money, then they end up back out on the street. Then we have probably about 15% are vets, and pretty much the same problem there. They didn't know how to handle their money, or they have some emotional and some mental health issues that have cropped up because of traumatic experiences. Everybody talks about post-traumatic stress. Well, just about everybody suffers from post-traumatic stress, but we have coping mechanisms where we know how to deal with it. Those that get into a traumatic experience, such as seeing life and death, or facing it themselves, or having a close relative, it puts them over the edge. And so, and when they do, they resort to many ways, and a lot of them end up on the street.
True, you know, and you mentioned something really important. You said families do not know how to deal lots of times with mental illness, and people get very, very exhausted, very weary. And so as people come to Feed My Sheep, to your facility, you connect them, you collaborate with other agencies, don't you? And I know, you know, I'm real aware right now that we're going to be having family members watching the show, and maybe some resources and some connections that we can give them today, even coming to Feed My Sheep. Share some of the collaboration that you do, Jim.
Well, MHMR is a good one, but if anyone can come see where they're offering a mental health first aid, that's a very basic, but it goes into the different schizophrenia, bipolar, different things, and it brings out some of the symptoms and some of the things that are there, because a lot of people cross drug use over with that. There's some similarities. Somebody with long-term drug use will hear voices and have problems, where someone who's schizophrenic faces that all the time. Then if you put the two of them together, it makes it real tough. So a family needs to learn, and so if they offer a lot of things. Drug and alcohol, Centacor is a good one to find out information. MHMR is a good source of it. Cedar Crest, even Baylor Scott & White has a mental health clinic where they have a lot of information to help you, and probably getting their loved one in to be diagnosed. That's a big one. You know, I had a young man sit in my office, and he's telling me I'm bipolar. And I said, well, how do you know you're bipolar? What doctor told you that? Oh, no, my mama told me that. And I said, oh, okay. But by the way, my mama's bipolar too. I said, well, who told you your mama she's bipolar? Her mama. And it goes, You've got those.
So education, basically.
Education is it.
Super important.
Are you truly have a mental health issue?
And a lot of them just don't take medication.
No.
They are prescribed but don't take it.
They are prescribed, or they might not be able to afford it. Or if they're homeless, they lose it.
And educating them too. See, that's the thing. They put them in institution, they level them out, they get them on their medication, they feel very good. It's kind of like you and I.
Well, it's difficult.
If I feel good, I'm not
Sure.
going to the doctor.
Exactly, but it's difficult too because you're dealing with adults.
Right.
And you know, that's just the way it is sometimes with
Right.
families. They can only do so much if it's an adult. But just to understand that there is training and help available will help family members be able to cope when they do get to interact with people.
And you can Google it.
Right.
We Google everything in the
That's
world,
the
but the
truth.
things that we really need sometimes we don't think
That's
about.
true.
You can Google, you can get a lot of information, but it'll also tell you where to go.
That's good.
You know, we have NAMI that meets regularly.
NAMI,
Right.
which stands for?
It's a
National Association
of Mental Illness.
Mental Illness.
Okay, okay.
And they meet in Killeen and Temple regularly.
Is that the #1 reason that people are homeless, do you think, Jim?
Oh yeah, in the United
chronic-
States, 65%.
Yeah, the chronic.
Our prisons and our jails. I had Sheriff Lang, who we were talking about. He says, yeah, when I talked about that, the jail are full of people that don't need to be in jail. They need help otherwise, but we don't have it. So they end up in jail.
Cheryl, go ahead, Sue.
And that will cost the county and the taxpayers lots of money.
True.
You know, as a matter of fact, the average is about $40,000 that one homeless person can cost the county. And of course, they're using up indigent health care and other things.
Right, and we're going to be talking about some of that in another segment too. Jim, I know that you have a lot of volunteers. How many volunteers actually, and those of you viewing, if you're interested in volunteering, there are many organizations that are working this issue. So share a little bit about your volunteers and what they do.
Well, Feed My Sheep and CTLC both.
And
then
CTLC is what?
Churches Touching Lives for Christ. It's a food pantry and clothing.
Okay.
And we deal with the homeless quite a bit there because we have special food for them. They can come get clothing, coats, and things like that on a regular basis. Then we just formed the Bell County Community Coalition,
Okay.
which crosses all of Bell County.
So people can volunteer in all of those
places. We have the Refuge in Coppers Cove. We have Operation Family Support, Heritage House here
St.
in
Vincent's
Killeen.
de Paul.
Yeah. Well, I'm not God. I'm coming by city. We have Helping Hands in Belton.
Yes.
Hope for the Hurting in Belton. Then we have St. Vincent de Paul, CTLC, Feed My Sheep in Temple.
And we have a shelter downtown, Jesus, Hope, and Love.
That's right. And so we have a lot of different things there to help people. And people want to volunteer. As the ministries I'm involved in, we're all volunteers. We have no paid people. I have about 750 volunteers a month that work at Feed My Sheep and CTLC, and we deal with about 10,000 people.
You feed a lot of people. How critical is sheltering? Both of you can talk about this, but Jim, there's a new men's shelter I'm aware of, correct?
Right.
And they have also a warming station too.
Right.
Okay.
Shelter is very important. In inclement weather, everybody deserves to be warm.
That's right.
As far as providing shelter daily and regularly, I'm more of those that are out there. Many of them, as like Sue and I were talking earlier, won't go to the warming centers even. They don't want to leave their stuff. They don't want to give up their freedom.
Sad, yeah.
But what is important, there's some of them out there that if they just had a place to live, they get a job, and they do. So I believe in transitional living, a place where they have a structured life, a place where they have programs to help them better themselves, help them get a job, help them to learn how to deal with their money.
Do we have transitional living facilities in our
There's
area?
several of them around in Killeen. There's several. I have one that I work with right now, and then I'm looking to start another one, and it's for men. We have a women Reach Out Crisis Ministry is for women. And
And I know
have
the
also-
Salvation Army is.
The Salvation Army they do have one, but also we have, like for veterans, it's not really transitional, but we have the Crosley Veterans Project now, of which we're getting veterans in at no money down and $450 a month, and they can have a place. They're buying the place, and
So this is the other end of the spectrum, actually,
Yes.
because these people probably, the veterans probably, are able to manage their money to some degree and do some of the
them have
things.
fiduciaries in there,
Okay.
but it gives them a place. One of the problems is with managing the money. We were just talking about a specific homeless person, and he gets quite a bit of money, but
Okay.
by the 5th or 10th of the month, it's gone. Either the people take it from him, or he spends it, and he doesn't, and then he doesn't have any money. They are
goodness,
not good
right.
at money management.
education.
Education.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
It's not just the fact of money, it's not just the fact of shelter, but it's teaching them what to do, helping them gain a solid foot. Of course, being faith-based, our solid foot is Jesus Christ.
Amen.
You get them solid there, then you can build them the rest of the way up.
Amen.
And then the other thing is finances. That's the biggest. We have at Feed My Sheep, we have a resource center. We help people with rent, utilities,
Yes.
get jobs and things. The biggest thing we find when we're helping people with financial aid,
But I
they
think
don't have any idea how they spend their money.
Okay.
And
so
what
there's
they
some
do with it.
education there that
It
you
has
do.
to
And I
have
think it's
education.
important, as far as education, that the public be educated also.
Yeah, I agree.
That they realize that not everybody who's homeless it's not something that's
right.
self-imposed.
Yes.
That
It's not laziness
It's not
necessarily.
laziness necessarily. There's going to be a portion of them.
That's right.
But you got to realize some of them, it's just said, if there's domestic violence, if they've lost their job, all these things, they've lost their transportation. There's so many things like that that are, so the public needs to know that not everybody out there, you know, and some of them are, I can tell you, they're college degree people.
Exactly.
So it's not
true.
just the dropouts, school dropouts.
Absolutely.
So when we educate people, we need to educate the public also.
I agree, and that's what this program is for, really, and the programs that we have on KPLE is to help us understand the situation, help our viewers understand the situation, and actually give them a place to plug in, possibly to volunteer, or just educate family members so that if they do have a family member or if they see, you know, a situation, that they would know who to connect people to.
Well, I believe my email address will be on the.
Yes,
that's what I
absolutely.
put it.
All
And-
the information
and
will be up on the
If they'd like
screen.
to know anything like that, they can just email me,
Amen.
and I'd be happy to direct them wherever they live in Bell County.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you both. We appreciate you. What you do in the community is amazing, and thank you for serving the Lord and serving Bell County and Central Texas area.